When billionaire Caleb Monroe walked into his marble kitchen and found his black maid bathing all four of his toddlers, naked, in the zinc, the entire house froze. What he did next, no one saw coming. From the outside, Caleb Monroe had everything. Founder of a billion-dollar tech company, 36, Ivy League educated, voted most eligible billionaire by Forbes. He lived in a fortress of glass, metal, and silence, high above the Oregon coast, where even the waves below seemed to obey him. But inside, it was dead quiet. The kind of quiet you don't notice until you realize it's not just sound missing, it's life. His quadruplets, Lila, Ava, Jace, and Milo, lived in the same house, but he couldn't remember the last time he had a real conversation with any of them. Maybe he never had. That was Jessica's role, his ex-wife, the one who walked away when their picture-perfect life cracked down the middle. "You're brilliant, Caleb," she'd said, stuffing her last suitcase, "but you're empty, and they need more than money." She left the kids behind, left him with 4 toddlers and no clue how to hold them, let alone raise them. He did what men like him do best. He outsourced it. He hired nannies, assistants, chefs, never looked them in the eye, never remembered their names. Until her. Tasha Green wasn't supposed to get attached. Not in this house. Not with this job. The agency told her it was temporary. Fill in for a week, 2 max. She needed the paycheck. After losing her son 2 years ago and everything else that came with him, life had become about survival. Rent, gas, food, not feelings. But the first time Ava reached up and called her Miss Tasha, sticky hands on her jeans and eyes full of trust, something in Tasha cracked. It wasn't just a job anymore. These kids, so rich, so protected, but so emotionally starved, they needed love. Real, messy, mother-shaped love. And no one seemed to notice that, except her. It was supposed to be like every other morning. The upstairs water system had gone cold again, something about automated recalibration. The toddlers had just dumped maple syrup all over themselves while giggling like mini-goblins. The upstairs bathroom was out of reach. Tasha looked at the kitchen sink, wide, deep, stainless steel. "Y'all are getting a country-style scrub-down today," she said with a half-laugh, half-sigh. She rolled up her sleeves, filled the sink with warm water, and gently plopped in the first 2. Soap, splash, giggles, then the next 2. They squealed with joy as she hummed a gospel lullaby her own mama used to sing. 4 little naked bodies, soaking wet, surrounded by laughter and bubbles in the middle of a billionaire's gourmet kitchen. It was madness. It was beautiful. It was real. And then the air changed. The heavy click of Italian leather shoes on marble, the kind of silence that wraps around your throat. Tasha looked up and froze. There he was, Caleb Monroe, in a black suit, no tie, coffee mug in hand, staring directly at her, wide-eyed, as his children giggled in a steel sink behind her. The color drained from her face. I'm sorry, sir," Tasha stammered, instantly reaching for a towel. "The water upstairs, it was cold and they spilled food and I didn't want them to get sick and—" He didn't say a word, just stood there, eyes flicking from her, to the kids, to the sink. Time slowed. He's going to fire me, she thought. Maybe worse. She'd seen stories, heard things. She could feel the power difference like gravity in the room. But the kids? They didn't care. "Milo, stop splashing!" Ava squealed, water hitting the floor. Tasha flinched. Caleb blinked. And then he laughed. Just once. Quick, soft, disbelieving. Tasha didn't know what to do. Then calmly he said, "You're bathing my children? In my kitchen sink?" His voice wasn't angry, just confused. "Yes, sir. I know how it looks, but I didn't think I had another option." He stepped closer, slowly, measured. "My mother," he said, eyes distant, "used to do that when the heater broke in a double-wide trailer in Tacoma." Tasha's lips parted, unsure if he was joking. He wasn't. Then, silence. Caleb stared at his children, really stared. How their curls glistened, how they looked happy. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen them like that. He turned to pour his coffee, quiet, calm. And just before he left the room, he said over his shoulder, "Don't let them get cold." And he was gone. Be honest. If you were her, caught like that by a billionaire boss, would you run or stay and defend your heart? Drop your answer in the comments. Tasha stood there, stunned, towel in hand. Her heart pounded in her chest like it wanted out. Was that mercy? A test? Something else? The kids didn't notice. They splashed and laughed and called her name like nothing happened. But she knew. Everything had just changed. Caleb couldn't concentrate. He'd been on 4 back-to-back investor calls, approved $3 million decisions, and signed off on a lawsuit, all without hearing a word of what anyone said. Because in the back of his mind, like an echo he couldn't mute, was the image. Tasha. Barefoot on the marble floor, laughing, bathing his children in his kitchen zinc like they were born in her arms. And the wildest part? They looked more loved in that one moment than they had in months of therapists, schedules, and overpriced Montessori programs. Tasha kept her head down all day. She didn't let herself breathe, not really. The moment in the kitchen had happened 10 hours ago, but the weight of it still sat on her chest like a brick. He hadn't spoken to her since, didn't scold her, didn't fire her. And that made it worse. Uncertainty was a crueler punishment than rage. She wiped down counters twice, polished the kids' sneakers, cleaned high chairs that weren't dirty. When the night nanny arrived, Tasha grabbed her coat. That's when she heard his voice. Tasha. She turned like a child caught sneaking out. Caleb stood in the hallway. No blazer, sleeves rolled, face unreadable. "I'd like to speak with you." They sat across from each other at the long kitchen island, the same one where she'd bathed his kids that morning. The sink still sparkled from her scrubbing. Caleb broke the silence first. "I should have been angry this morning." Tasha stiffened. "I understand if you were." "But I wasn't." She blinked. "You weren't?" He shook his head, looked tired, honest. "I walked in expecting another silent, mechanical morning," he said. "Instead, I found my kids smiling, laughing, alive." He paused, swallowed. "They don't smile like that with me." Tasha didn't know what to say. Her first instinct was to apologize, but for what? Loving his children? "I wasn't trying to cross a line, Mr. Monroe." "It's Caleb," he said quickly. Too quickly. She blinked again. "Okay. Caleb." Another long pause. His eyes locked on hers now, something vulnerable flickering behind all that ice. "You ever do something you didn't plan, and it changes the way you see everything?" Tasha nodded, slowly. "Yes. Once." He wanted to ask. She could see it. But he didn't. They just sat there, 2 people from different worlds, quietly realizing they'd stepped into a third world they hadn't planned, together. Suddenly, little footsteps. Lila toddled into the kitchen holding her stuffed elephant. "Miss Tasha can't sleep." Tasha rose instinctively, her maternal reflexes automatic, but Caleb raised his hand gently. "No. Let me." Tasha froze. He knelt in front of his daughter, brushing a curl behind her ear. "You want me to walk you back to bed, Bug?" Lila nodded. Caleb scooped her up, awkward, like a man learning to breathe again. The child's head nestled against his shoulder. As he walked away, he turned back briefly. "Thanks for not letting them get cold." Tasha smiled, just barely. "You're welcome, Caleb." That night, Tasha sat on the tiny pull-out bed in the staff room, staring at the ceiling. What was that? A shift? A one-off moment? She was just the maid, just temporary, just passing through like every job before this one. So why did it feel like something bigger had just cracked open? Why did his eyes linger on hers like she was more than an employee? And why did her heart pound like it was finally waking up after 2 long, grief-heavy years? She clutched her phone, staring at a picture she kept hidden. Her baby boy, Khalil. Gone too soon, but still hers. "I'm not looking for a family," she whispered to the dark. "I'm just here for the job." But even she didn't believe it anymore. If you were Caleb right now, Would you keep your distance or take the risk of getting emotionally involved? Comment below. What would you do? The next morning, Caleb came down early again, not for a call, not for coffee. He just came. And when he found Tasha in the breakfast nook braiding Lila's hair while humming the same lullaby from the sink, he didn't interrupt. He just watched. And this time, he smiled. The Monroe mansion echoed with wealth, but now it also echoed with whispers. The housekeeper, the cook, even the night nanny, all noticed how Caleb kept showing up earlier, lingering longer, asking more about the children. "How long you think this one lasts?" the housekeeper mumbled one afternoon. "The maid?" the cook asked. "Please," the housekeeper scoffed. He never even looked at the others. But now, he watches her like she hung the damn moon. Tasha heard them. She wasn't meant to, but she did. And her face burned with shame, because they weren't wrong. In the office, Caleb stared at his phone. Tasha had texted him a picture of the kids earlier. Jace had drawn a crooked stick figure of Dada with what looked like spaghetti arms. Caleb had actually laughed out loud. But now, he couldn't bring himself to reply. He was losing control, and Caleb Monroe did not lose control. "She's a staff member," he muttered to himself. "This is inappropriate. You're a professional. You don't—" But his voice died before the sentence could finish. He could still hear her laugh in the kitchen, still see the bubbles in the zinc, still feel the way his chest cracked open just watching her. He clenched his jaw, then did what he always did when he didn't like his feelings. He buried them. Later that evening, Caleb passed Tasha in the hallway. Brief eye contact. Nothing more. "Mr. Monroe," she said politely, her voice professional. "Tasha," he replied, equally clipped. No warmth, no acknowledgement of everything they'd shared in the past 48 hours, no memory of a child's soft head on his shoulder, or the way he'd smiled watching her braid Lila's hair. It stung. Tasha found the courage that night. After the kids were asleep, she gently knocked on his home office door. He looked up from his laptop, clearly surprised. "I just wanted to make sure everything's all right," she said softly. "I didn't mean to overstep. This job, or—" "You didn't overstep," he said too quickly. "You're doing great." His tone was clipped, dismissive, corporate. "Oh," she said. "Okay." She turned to go. "Tasha," he called. She paused, hand on the doorframe. Caleb looked at her, his eyes full of something conflicted, something he was trying to strangle inside himself. "I think it's best we keep things professional, for the kids." She nodded slowly. "I understand." But she didn't understand. Not really. And neither did he. The next few days were cold, mechanical, safe. Caleb retreated into work. Tasha stayed quiet. They barely spoke. The children felt it, even if they couldn't explain it. Lila started throwing tantrums again. Jace wet the bed twice. Milo refused to eat unless Tasha fed him by hand. But no one said anything out loud. Not even when Caleb would catch her smile at the kids and feel something ache in his chest. Not even when Tasha saw him holding Ava and wondered why it made her feel so lonely. They were both pretending the fire hadn't started, but pretending doesn't put it out. Friday evening, rain hitting the windows like soft drum beats. Tasha stood outside Caleb's office again, this time not knocking. She heard him pacing, arguing with someone on the phone. "No, I don't want to launch yet. I'm not risking the whole product on half-baked AI." Silence. "Just get it done. No excuses." Click. He emerged moments later, surprised to find her standing there. "You need something?" he asked. Tasha hesitated. Then, finally, "I think I should quit." Caleb froze. "What?" "This is getting hard to navigate," she said, her voice calm but shaking. "For you, for me, for the kids." She waited. Waited for him to say don't. Waited for him to fight for something. He opened his mouth and then closed it, and just nodded. "If that's what you think is best." Tasha blinked, stunned at how much it hurt, how much he didn't fight. "Okay," she whispered, and turned to walk away. That night, Tasha packed her things slowly. She sat on the edge of the pull-out bed, one last time. The room looked the same. But she wasn't the same woman who walked in 6 weeks ago. She had felt something real. And now? She was walking away from it. She pressed her palm to her phone screen, hovering over the agency number. Before she could dial, a soft voice echoed down the hallway. "Miss Tasha." It was Ava, holding her elephant, tears in her eyes. "Why are you leaving?" Tasha knelt down, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I'm not sure, baby," she said, "but maybe it's not forever." It started with a phone call at 6:02 a.m. The night nanny was panicked. "Mr. Monroe, I'm so sorry, I have to leave. My daughter's in the ER, I just got the call, I'm already packing." "Go," Caleb said without hesitation. "Do what you need to do." But the moment he hung up, reality hit. He was alone, with 4 toddlers. For the entire weekend, the regular day nanny was out of town. His assistant was unreachable. Everyone was gone. Everyone except her. Tasha had just zipped up the last of her bags when she heard it. A knock, gentle, hesitant. She opened the door and saw Caleb standing there. He looked not like a CEO, not like the man who had let her walk away 2 nights ago. He looked like a father in over his head. "The night nanny had to leave. I can't do this alone." Tasha blinked. "I thought you agreed it was best we keep things professional," she said carefully. "I did," he admitted, "but this isn't about me. It's about them." She hesitated. "I'll pay you triple your rate. Just stay through the weekend." Tasha looked past him toward the hallway. She could already hear the twins fighting over cereal. She sighed. "I'm only staying for the kids." He nodded. Understood. But both of them knew it wasn't just about the kids. By noon, the sky turned grey. By 2 p.m., rain hammered the glass walls like bullets. A power flicker. Then thunder. Then the lights went out completely. The backup generator failed. Caleb's tech haven became a silent, flickering cave. And the children. Frightened. Crying. Crawling into Tasha's arms like she was their only anchor in the storm. Tasha wrapped them in blankets, holding all 4 on the couch. Caleb watched from the stairs, useless, helpless, then walked down slowly. "Do you want help?" he asked. Tasha looked up, softened. "Yes." They built a fire in the living room. The mansion transformed into something human. Not perfect, not sterile, warm. Tasha handed Caleb a bottle to feed Milo. He fumbled with it. She laughed. "No, hold it like this," she said, guiding his hands. Their fingers brushed. He froze. So did she. Their eyes locked for just a moment too long. The kids finally fell asleep in a pile of pillows. The storm outside raged on. Caleb and Tasha sat across from each other, sharing a blanket, backs against the couch. The fire crackled between them. "You were amazing with them today," he said quietly. Tasha smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I've had practice." Caleb hesitated. "Can I ask about that?" She took a breath, then nodded. "I had a son, Khalil. He passed at 2. Respiratory infection. Doctors missed it. By the time they caught it, it was too late." Caleb didn't speak, just felt the weight of it. "I stopped working with kids after that," she said. "But when I met yours, I don't know. Something in me woke up." Silence. Then Caleb whispered, "I wasn't there when mine were born. I was closing a deal in Tokyo. I thought, plenty of time for the firsts. Turns out, you don't get to pick which moments matter." Another pause. "I don't think they even know me," he admitted. "Not really." "They know who shows up," Tasha said. "And you've been trying lately." Caleb looked at her. "You saw me, didn't you? When I didn't even see myself." Tasha's throat tightened. She didn't respond. She couldn't, because suddenly he was leaning closer. And for one dizzy second, she didn't move. Their faces were inches apart. Rain drummed the roof like a heartbeat. The firelight flickered across her skin. Caleb lifted his hand, slowly brushing a curl behind her ear. "Tasha," he whispered. She leaned in. So did he. But just before their lips met, Lila cried out in her sleep. They jumped apart. Reality rushed back in like a slap. Tasha rose quickly. "I should check on them." Caleb nodded, heart pounding. And just like that, the moment shattered. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than the thunder ever did. Tasha stood in the kitchen early, quietly preparing the kids' breakfast like nothing had happened the night before, like she hadn't almost kissed her boss in front of a fire, like she hadn't let herself feel something for the first time in 2 years, and like she hadn't immediately regretted it. She couldn't afford this. Not emotionally, not financially, not in this house where the power wasn't hers. Caleb hadn't slept. He had replayed the almost kiss a dozen times in his mind. Her eyes, her breath, the way she leaned in, then left. Part of him wanted to storm into the kitchen and demand answers. The other part didn't feel like he had the right. She was his employee. He'd drawn the line. He was the one who'd said, "Let's keep it professional." But now he couldn't stop wondering. What pain was she carrying? Why did it feel so familiar? While Tasha helped the kids dress upstairs, Caleb wandered into the staff quarters. He hadn't ever been in her room. He didn't intend to snoop, just curiosity. But what he saw on the nightstand stopped him cold. A small, worn photo of a little boy. Big brown eyes, 2 missing teeth, a stuffed dinosaur clutched in one hand, and beside it, a hospital bracelet. His throat tightened. He heard her voice behind him. "You shouldn't be in here." Caleb turned around slowly. "Tasha, I wasn't trying to—" "It's fine," she said too quickly, grabbing the photo, shoving it into a drawer. He stepped closer. "Was that your son?" Her shoulders dropped. "Yes." "What happened?" he asked, gently now. No CEO, just man to woman. She sat down on the edge of the bed, her fingers tightening around her knees. "Khalil, he was 2, got sick. It was fast. The kind of fast where you don't even know how to scream yet." Her voice cracked. "I was working a double shift at a nursing home, left him with my cousin. Thought it'd be okay. By the time I got to the hospital, they were already trying to resuscitate." Caleb's heart shattered. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. She wiped her face quickly. "Don't be. It's been 2 years, and I still hear his laugh when I braid Ava's hair. I still flinch when I hear a cough that sounds like his." She looked up at him, suddenly angry. "I wasn't supposed to get attached to your kids, but they felt like him. They cracked something open." Caleb stepped closer, sat across from her. "I know that feeling." She blinked. He hesitated, then finally spoke. "My wife didn't leave me because I cheated," he said quietly. "She left because I was absent." Tasha frowned. "I thought providing for the family meant working harder, building a company, securing their future, but all she wanted was for me to be present." His voice dropped. "I missed their first steps, their first words. Hell, I didn't even know which twin is older until 3 months ago." He let out a bitter laugh. "When she packed up and walked out, I wasn't angry. I was ashamed, because she was right." Tasha watched him. For the first time really saw him. Not the suits, not the wealth, not the control. Just a broken man trying to rebuild something. "You've changed," she said softly. "I'm trying," he said, "but I don't know if it's enough." They sat there, both unarmored now. 2 stories bleeding into one another. Later that evening, Tasha helped Caleb put the kids to bed. As they tucked in Ava, she reached under her pillow and pulled something out. "Miss Tasha made this," she said proudly, handing Caleb a crayon drawing. It showed stick figures of the 4 kids, holding hands with a bigger figure, Tasha, and beside her, Caleb. Everyone was smiling. Tasha blushed. It was just something to help with emotions. Caleb stared at the picture for a long moment. "It's perfect," he said, then added without looking at her, "You're part of this family now, whether you believe it or not." Tasha's eyes glistened, and for the first time since Khalil passed, she let the warmth in. The air in the Monroe house felt different, lighter. Tasha stood in the kitchen, flipping pancakes with Milo clinging to her leg and Jay stacking cups behind her. The twins giggled. The sun spilled through the windows like honey. And Caleb, he was there, really there, pouring juice, helping Ava with her shoes, laughing when Lila stuck a pancake on her head like a crown. For the first time, the house didn't feel like a mansion. It felt like a home. Tasha caught Caleb's eye. He smiled, genuine, easy. She smiled back. Later that afternoon, Tasha sat on the patio brushing Lila's curls. Caleb walked out, a bottle of water in hand. "She usually screams when I touch her hair," he said, watching her gently separate sections. "She needs patience and someone who makes her feel pretty." He sat beside her, watching carefully. "Can you show me how to do it?" She paused. "You want to do Lila's hair?" "I want to try. I've missed too many firsts. I don't want to miss any more." Tasha softened. "Okay. Start with detangler and go slow." She handed him the brush. Their hands touched. Neither pulled away. Lila giggled. "Daddy's brushing like a puppy." Caleb laughed, fumbling with the brush. "You mean I'm terrible?" "Yes," Lila beamed. But she leaned into him anyway, and Caleb kissed her cheek. Tasha's chest swelled at the sight. She hadn't felt this safe, this connected in years. That evening they played in the yard, hide and seek, popsicles. Tasha taught them a jump rope chant from her childhood, and Caleb joined in. He was awkward at first, tripping over the rhythm, but the kids howled with laughter. Tasha laughed too, her real laugh, full and unguarded. And when Caleb looked at her then, she felt it, the way his gaze lingered, the softness in his voice, the way he was choosing her with every glance. That night they sat down to dinner, all 6 of them. No tablets, no screens, no staff hovering in the background, just spaghetti, giggles, and stories about superheroes and bubble baths. Caleb lifted his glass. "To Tasha," he said, "who saved more than just my kids." Tasha flushed, caught between pride and disbelief. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me be part of this." And for the first time, neither of them was pretending anymore. After the kids were asleep, Caleb put on a playlist from his phone. "Recognize this?" he asked. Tasha laughed. "90s R&B. You listen to this." "My mum used to clean the house to it." A slow track came on. "Can We Talk" by Tevin Campbell. He held out a hand. She raised an eyebrow. "Are you serious?" "I'm terrible at it," he said. "But I'd rather look stupid than regret not asking." She took his hand. They danced, slow, close, the kind of dance where you say everything without saying a word. She rested her head against his chest. "You're not terrible," she whispered. "You make it easy," he replied. And in that moment it felt possible. Love, family, healing, all of it. Later, as they stood near the door to her room, Tasha looked up at him. "Caleb." He touched her cheek. "You don't have to say anything." She stepped closer. Their lips were inches apart again. And this time, she didn't pull away. They kissed, soft, gentle, full of everything they'd been holding in. When they parted, her voice was barely a whisper. "I think I'm falling for you." Caleb exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. "I already fell." It started with a flash. Bright, silent, quick. Neither of them saw the photographer across the street, crouched low behind the black SUV. They didn't know that someone had tipped off the tabloids. They didn't know that the photo would be everywhere by morning. But the headline? Billionaire CEO caught in late-night embrace with live-in black maid. The photo showed Caleb's hand on Tasha's waist, his lips brushing her forehead, her eyes closed. It was intimate, and the internet went wild. "Do you know what this looks like?" Caleb's assistant shouted, slamming a tabloid on his desk. "You're one of the most visible CEOs in tech, and you're caught playing house with the help?" Caleb's jaw clenched. "She's not the help," he growled. "Oh, no? Then who is she?" Because shareholders want to know if their billion-dollar investment is being run by a man who can't control his impulses. He stopped himself. What was she? Everything. And now, everyone knew. Tasha sat in the kitchen, frozen, her hands trembling around a cold coffee mug. The headline was on every screen. Her photo, her face, plastered on gossip blogs, trending on social media, being picked apart by strangers who didn't know her name, her story, or her pain. Some of the comments, "Of course it's the maid. Men always want the forbidden. He's just using her. Watch him drop her in a week." Typical gold digger move. Tasha felt like she couldn't breathe. She wasn't angry at Caleb, not yet. She was ashamed, exposed. Her story had been stolen. Caleb found her in the hallway, bags already packed. "You're leaving?" he asked, voice cracking. She turned to him, eyes filled with more pain than anger. "You think I can stay now? You don't have to run." "You don't get it," she snapped. "You'll survive this. You're rich, you're white, you're untouchable. Me? I'll be another internet joke, another maid who thought she was special." Caleb flinched. "I never saw you like that," he said. "But they do," she whispered. "And now I can't walk into a grocery store without wondering who's laughing at me behind their phone." He stepped closer. "Then let me fix it." "You can't fix what people see when they look at me." "I'll call the PR team," Caleb said. "We'll reframe the story. Say it was taken out of context, that you were helping with the kids." Tasha stared at him. "Say I was just the help?" "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." Her voice dropped, cold and sharp. "You can't have it both ways, Caleb. You don't get to kiss me in the dark and deny me in the light." He reached for her hand. She pulled away. "This was never going to work," she said. "I just didn't want to believe it." "Tasha, I have to go." Lila tugged on Caleb's sleeve as Tasha walked out the door with her suitcase. "Where's Miss Tasha going?" Caleb couldn't answer. Ava started to cry. Jace hugged Milo like the world was ending, and in some way, it was. Tasha sat in a tiny apartment that night. One bedroom, no framed pictures. She stared at the hospital bracelet in her hand. She'd lost 2 families now, and maybe it was her fault for believing this could be different. In the mansion, Caleb stood alone in the kitchen, the same sink where it all started, the place she brought his children to life again, now empty. He whispered to no one, "I don't want this house if she's not in it." And for the first time in years, he cried. The Monroe estate hadn't been this quiet since the day Jessica left. No laughter, no tiny footsteps, no lullabies drifting down the halls. Tasha was gone, and the children knew it. Lila refused to eat. Ava cried every time someone opened a door. Milo and Jace sat quietly on the couch, holding their stuffed animals like shields. Caleb tried. He made their cereal, read their stories, braided Lila's hair poorly, but the house felt like it was holding its breath, and so was he. Caleb sat at his desk staring at a blank email draft. He typed, deleted, typed again. "Tasha, too formal, too cold. I miss you. Too selfish. I love you. Too late." He leaned back, frustrated, paralyzed. His entire life had been built on control, on calculated risks, on logic. But Tasha had never been a calculation. She had been a miracle, and he had watched her walk away. Tasha stared at her agency contract. Another family needed help. 3 kids, wealthy, temporary. It was just work, just like always. She looked around her apartment, sparse, safe, lonely. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "The kids keep asking for you. Just wanted you to know." No name. But she knew. "Caleb." She typed a reply, deleted it, typed again, then turned off her phone. Out of desperation, or maybe guilt, Caleb drove across town. Jessica answered the door wearing yoga pants and an annoyed expression. "What are you doing here?" "I messed up." Jessica blinked. Well, that could mean literally anything. He walked in, sat down, looked lost. "I fell in love with someone, and I ruined it." Jessica sat across from him slowly. "Wow. She made me better, A better dad, a better man, and now she's gone because of me. Jessica studied him. Is this about that maid the tabloids were frothing over? She's not just the maid, Jessica nodded. She must be special, because I've never seen you look like this. Caleb hesitated, then asked something he never thought he would. How do you know if it's real? Jessica smiled sadly. When losing her hurts more than your pride. She hadn't been back in almost 2 years, but something inside her needed to go, to remember, to release. She stood outside the pediatric wing, watching mothers feed their babies, doctors whispering in corners, and then she closed her eyes. I'm sorry, Khalil, she whispered. I didn't know it was okay to feel again, to love again. She opened her eyes, tears rolling. But I want to try. He cancelled a board meeting, put his phone on silent, told the staff to take the day off. Then he went to the one place he'd been avoiding for weeks, her apartment. He stood at the door, breathing hard, sweaty palms, rapid heart, and knocked. Tasha opened the door, no makeup, hoodie, slippers, completely unprepared. When she saw him, her breath caught. I thought you hated attention, she said quietly. I do, he said, but I hate losing you more. She stared at him, arms crossed, guarded. I told you, this world doesn't treat women like me the same, especially when they fall for men like you. I know, he said, but I'm not asking you to fall alone. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out the crayon drawing from Ava, the one with the 6 stick figures, their little makeshift family. I hung this in my office, he said, because I need to remember what really matters. Silence. Then she asked, why now? And he said, because I spent my whole life building something that means nothing if you're not in it. Tasha didn't respond right away. She just stood there, eyes on the crayon drawing in Caleb's hand, her heart pounding like it had miles to run. Caleb took a step closer, his voice soft. You once told me you weren't looking for a family, that you were just here for the job. He paused. But you didn't just fill a role, Tasha. You created something this house didn't have before. Warmth, laughter, life. She shook her head slowly, blinking back tears. I don't know how to do this. I'm scared. I am too, he admitted. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. Then quietly, he said, come home. The Monroe estate was quiet the next morning, until the front door opened. Tiny feet thundered across the floor. Mrs. Tasha. Milo and Jace tackled her legs. Ava threw her arms around her waist. Lila burst into tears and just held on. She knelt, surrounded by them, letting herself cry. I missed you too, she whispered. So much. Caleb stood behind them, watching with glassy eyes. No press, no announcements, just the family that mattered. Later that afternoon, Tasha stood at the infamous kitchen sink, rinsing blueberries for the kids' snack. Caleb walked in, rolled up his sleeves, and stood beside her. They washed in silence for a few seconds. Then he smiled. Can't believe this is where it all started, she laughed softly. Right? Naked kids in a billion-dollar kitchen. Real classy. He looked at her seriously. I'd relive that day 100 times if it meant finding you. She looked up. I'm not going anywhere this time, she said. But I want us to do this right. Slow. Honest. Together. His hand slid over hers. Together. A week later, Caleb walked into a press conference and said something no one expected. I've spent years building a company I'm proud of. But today, I want to talk about something I'm even prouder of. My family. Gasps. Cameras. Flash. Yes, the woman in that photo is someone I care for deeply. She's also the reason my kids are happy, healthy, and loved. If my character is questioned because I love a woman who saved my children's hearts, so be it. He smiled into the cameras. She's not just the help, she's the home. And in her apartment, watching it live, Tasha cried. One evening, after the kids were asleep, Caleb and Tasha sat on the patio, wrapped in the same blanket from the night of the storm. "I don't want to ask you to marry me yet," Caleb said, "because I want our story to have roots before it blooms." Tasha smiled. "You really just said that poetic nonsense?" He laughed. "Don't ruin my moment." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I'm in no rush," she said. "I've already got everything I lost. A home, a second chance, love." He looked down at her. "You've got me. All of me." 3 weeks later, Caleb stood in the kitchen with the kids splashing in the sink. Again. Tasha came around the corner, eyes wide. "Seriously?" she laughed. "You're recreating the crime scene?" "I needed a reason to call you back in here," he teased. She walked over, soaked by Milo's splash, and groaned. But then she kissed his cheek, right in front of the kids, and all 4 squealed. "Daddy's got a girlfriend," Jace sang. "Miss Tasha's the mommy now," Ava shouted. Caleb and Tasha laughed, eyes meeting across the suds. And this time, no one stopped smiling. Do you believe true love can survive being tested this hard? And have you ever found something unexpected, right when you stopped looking for it? Share your story in the comments. Someone might need to hear it. That night, as the children slept, Tasha walked into Caleb's office. He looked up from his laptop, surprised. She handed him something. The hospital bracelet. Khalil's. "I think he'd be okay with me moving on," she said. Caleb gently wrapped his arms around her and whispered, "Then let's move forward. Together."